There are moments when the news does not hit like thunder. Sometimes it comes in quiet, like a signature sitting on a desk somewhere in Santa Clara. Before OTAs begin today, the 49ers moved money around, opened up cap space, and left a few clear signals at the door. A trusted backup, an adjusted offensive line, a veteran still waiting on the market, a star trying to beat the clock, and a safety stepping into a defining season. When the building moves before the players hit the field, the fan base has to read it too. If you ride with this 49ers team every day, subscribe right now. The first move of the day might look small if you only scroll past the headline, but inside Santa Clara, these kinds of adjustments almost never happen by accident. Mac Jones agreed to a renegotiated deal with an extra $300,000 roster bonus, treated as a signing bonus, and he is now set to make $3.55 million in 2026, with up to $2.25 million more available through incentives before he hits the market in 2027. No, that is not star quarterback money. But it is a quiet message from the 49ers. They understand the value of having an emergency plan that has already been through the fire. And that is the part a lot of people outside this fan base do not fully understand. Last year, when Brock Purdy was dealing with that toe injury, Jones was not just some name buried on the depth chart. He appeared in 11 games, started 8, threw for 2,151 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. There were good moments. There were moments that had every 49ers fan holding their breath, but he kept the season alive when things could have fallen apart fast. For a team that sees itself as a true contender, a backup quarterback is not a luxury. It is protection against disaster. But the financial side gets even more interesting when you look at Jake Brendel. By converting $3.02 million of his salary into a signing bonus, the 49ers created $2.265 million in cap space. His 2026 cap hit drops to $3.14 million, while that $3.6 million charge connected to the 2027 void year remains. Translation for the fan base: San Francisco gained flexibility right now without announcing to the rest of the league what might be coming next. So the real question starts right there. Why make those changes right before OTAs? Maybe it is just normal roster management. Maybe it is preparation to sign somebody, absorb a market opportunity, or give the front office a little more breathing room if a need pops up once practices begin. Brendel, at 33, still started 15 games last season after starting all 17 in 3 straight years from 2022 through 2024. So this is not just spreadsheet football. This is continuity in the middle of the line, protection for Purdy, cap maneuvering, and roster survival. Behind the scenes, the 49ers are tuning the engine before they hit the gas, and that cap space is exactly what makes the next conversation a little more fascinating. Because still sitting out there on the market is a name too big to treat like some small footnote: Bobby Wagner. Yes, that Bobby Wagner, the same linebacker who spent years representing organized defense, instant diagnosis, physical contact in the right spot, and real locker room leadership. He is still available. He still intends to play in 2026. And when a veteran like that is sitting there, a team like the 49ers at least has to read the room. Not because San Francisco is desperate. That is the important part. Fred Warner is still the heartbeat of this defense. Dre Greenlaw came back on a 1-year deal. When that group is healthy, it has identity, speed, intelligence, and real attitude. But after everything this franchise has dealt with on the injury side, especially in the middle of the defense, acting like depth does not matter would be arrogance. And arrogant contenders usually pay for it when December football gets ugly. Wagner's fit would be more behind the scenes than flashy front-page headline. He would not come in to take Warner's command. That would not make sense. He would come in to strengthen the room, raise the standard in meetings, teach angles, identify formations before the snap, protect the team if someone goes down, and maybe give Raheem Morris a veteran piece for certain packages and certain physical matchups. Sometimes the difference between surviving a tough stretch and completely collapsing is the kind of signing that does not scream, but keeps the building standing. And there is another layer here too. KJ Wright is now the 49ers linebackers coach. Wright and Wagner were part of that brutal defensive culture in Seattle. Football San Francisco fans know very well, whether they liked it or not. So when Wright is already inside the building and Wagner is still outside of it, that mental connection shows up. It does not mean it is going to happen, but it is easy to understand why the name starts making noise in the hallway. The question John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan would probably have to ask is simple. What is that kind of presence worth in January? At 35, close to 36, Wagner is not the same lightning bolt every Sunday. But linebacker is not only about running. It is diagnosis, voice, calm, alignment, playoff memory, and control. If the price is manageable, if the role is clearly defined, and if the locker room buys in, this has the feel of a move from a team that knows its margin for error is tight. And after creating cap space, every available veteran name gets a little more interesting. But there is a massive difference between creating room for a possible veteran piece and dealing with the clock on one of the faces of the franchise trying to beat his own body. George Kittle tore his Achilles in January in that postseason win over Philadelphia. And now he is trying to do something that sounds almost wild to a lot of people. Make it back by week 1. And the behind-the-scenes part of this is brutal. If this were a normal home opener with a controlled routine, a familiar locker room, a short trip, and a standard week, the conversation would already be difficult. But the 49ers open the season against the Rams in Australia on a Thursday that will already be Friday in Melbourne after a flight of around 15 hours. For any player, that affects sleep, legs, recovery, and preparation. For a 32-year-old tight end entering his 10th season, coming off an Achilles injury, that becomes way too delicate to treat like tough talk. Kittle, in his own way, is not selling drama. He said he was told that coming back for that game is not a crazy goal, and that if he stays on the right path, he has a chance. That line matters because it shows two things at the same time. There is real hope inside the process, but there are also a lot of conditions hidden inside that routine. Training, tendon response, burst, blocking, change of direction, contact, travel, medical clearance. None of that looks pretty in a social media post. That is repeated work, day after day, away from all the noise. And Kyle Shanahan has already made his frustration with opening so far from home pretty clear. Kittle did not hit that point as hard, but he admitted he would rather start in the United States. Of course he would. The fan base would rather see that too. Because if he is cleared, he said he will be on the field. If it is close, it becomes a game-time decision. That is the tension. And I want to know how the faithful reads this one. Would you put Kittle on the field in Australia if he is right on the edge? Or would you hold him back to protect the full season? Because 57 catches, 628 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 11 games last year remind you of one thing. When Kittle plays, the identity changes. He blocks like a lineman, catches like a star, and injects life into the offense. But in 2026, courage will also mean knowing when to push and when to breathe. And if Kittle is racing time, Ji'Ayir Brown is in a different kind of race. Maybe quieter, but just as heavy. The race to prove the 49ers' silent confidence was not naive. Let's talk like grown-ups here. After the end of his rookie year with the rise, the Super Bowl start, and the feeling that he could be a real piece for the future, it looked like Brown had walked through the door. But the NFL charges interest fast. In 2024, he lost ground. In 2025, he got the starting job back, but the season still left more questions than answers. The Carolina game in Week 12 was the big flash. 2 interceptions, real impact, the kind of performance that reminds the fan base why the team believed in him. But the full tape does not let you hide from everything else. When Brown was targeted, he allowed a 102.4 passer rating, the worst of his career, along with 4 touchdowns surrendered. And when he looked beaten in coverage, it was not some quiet mistake. It was the kind of play that shows up on replay and makes everybody take a long breath. Even with all of that, look at the roster room message. The 49ers did not spend serious capital to move past him. They did not bring in a major free agent signing. They did not use a meaningful draft pick to put a direct replacement on the table. The most notable addition was undrafted defensive back Jalen Stroman. And while every player deserves respect, that does not look like an immediate threat to Brown's job. Jason Pinnock went back to the Giants after his short Bay Area stay. The safety depth got even thinner. And Brown enters 2026 with a much clearer path than part of the fan base probably expected. That says something. Maybe it says Raheem Morris sees a fix. Maybe it says the issue was not only Brown, but usage, communication, fit, and role. He and Malik Mustafa both seem more natural near the line, attacking the game, feeling traffic, and playing physical. The challenge is the deep space. Turning, running, anticipating, and making sure the defense does not pay for mistakes over the top. And for Brown, there is no cleaner motivation than a contract. He is entering a defining year. He can turn 2026 into an argument for serious money, Or he can come out of it as another safety trying to find a role somewhere else. The fan base may be split, I get it. But Santa Clara already spoke without needing to say a word. They gave him one more real chance. He cannot pay that back with hesitation. It has to be reading, speed, and presence. A contract year does not pair well with soft excuses. When you pull the whole day together, the message does not fit inside one headline. The 49ers are moving money before practices begin, watching veterans who could change the temperature of the locker room, tracking Kittle through a recovery that blends courage with risk, and putting Ji'Ayir Brown in front of a season that could redefine his career. That is contender business behind the curtain. It is not empty noise. It is a franchise trying to shrink its margin for error before the NFC starts demanding answers. So stay locked in with the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment which of these 4 stories could matter most this season.